Hi everybody, I'm Laura.
Hi everyone, I'm Katie. This is our podcast.
Sisters across the pond. Woo-woo! So first thing, thank you so much for coming along and listening to us today or watching, however you listen to our podcast. And just to let you know that whatever we discuss today really comes from a genuine place of kindness.
And so with that being said, we'll just take a moment to pause. Take a nice deep breath in. Relax the shoulders. Breathe out. And just be.
Lovely. The ringing just goes on. It's just beautiful, isn't it? Beautiful. So anyway, this is like episode 8 continued, part 2, because we've got the beautiful Janine has come to join us. So you would have heard us speak about her before. Janine is just such, oh gosh, we could go on and on and on and on, but then we don't got the time to do that because it would be hours long, our podcast. But she's joining us to discuss the menopause. She's got oodles of experience, personal, professional. So she's the perfect person. There's a lot of peas there, wasn't there?
Peter Piper picked a peck of peppers.
So welcome, Janine.
Yes, hiya. Welcome.
How are you?
I'm all right, thank you. You've dragged me in as the older cousin, haven't you, on menopause journey?
Well, we needed some grown-up supervision at some point. So,
are you asking me?
No.
Oh, it's really good to be here, though. I've been listening into your podcast as well. So it's nice to be here. Thank you for asking us.
No, thanks for coming along. Yeah, we did talk a little bit about some of the statistics, mostly UK based. I think I even mentioned that I had a very, very quick Google for stuff here in Canada, and a lot of the links were like defunct, and I was like, oh, this is hopeful. So I'm sure if I'd have done a more thorough job, I might have found some better information, but I think there was a lot that Laura had found, which was really interesting anyway. So what is your experience, Janine?
Bloody hell, can I swear on this podcast? Is that how it is? It's been a very intense journey. And I think that's what it can be for a lot of women. And I also think it's worth saying that not every woman has an intense journey going through the menopause. Some people, they don't even notice, and it's because, you know, they might not have any symptoms. Things just might change them in different ways. Other people have real physical symptoms, and some women have real emotional and mental and physical symptoms as well. So it kind of can hit you all different ways. And human beings are fantastically individual, and especially women, actually. I think we are amazing creatures, and we can deal and cope with so much, and we can navigate really difficult places. And we have the ability just to get on with it. And I think kind of that comes from quite the, dare I say, another P word, like the patriarchal society, you know, in that way. And I think, well, I feel, and I know from talking to a lot of people in my kind of situation, that actually I think everybody's just had enough of that. It's such an old-fashioned way of being, actually. So my journey into menopause, I had early menopause. It kind of runs in our family. And I must have started when I was about 37 or 38-ish, you know, 39-ish. And things were really beginning to shift for me, you know. My actual cycles changed. And I, you know, it was a new relationship. I'd married my husband, Ewan. And then next thing you know, I just didn't recognize myself. My periods were coming every 2 weeks. I was absolutely knackered. One minute I felt like I had such insight and kind of, power, that kind of, when you're feeling really kind of, I've got this, I'm entering into a different space. And then other times I'll be rocking, crying as well, so it's kind of really kind of hit me on both a physical and a mental and a spiritual level as well. There's a nice little alarm going outside. I am in the town centre at the moment, but it took me into a different space. It was like somebody had kind of put me on a merry-go-round and was just spinning, like the waltzers. And you don't know, like, you got off the waltzers, like, what the heck is going on here?
Where am I?
Yeah. And I kind of knew this. And I went to see my GP at 39. And I said to her, I think I'm menopausal. And her actual words to me were, you can't be menopausal. You're my age. And that was a female GP. And that was my first inkling that I was like, oh, God, people aren't really getting this. And she's a general practitioner. And it's not their fault. They get 2 hours of training.
Oh, yeah.
But do you know what as well, though? How does that make you feel? How did that make you feel there? And then do you think like, well, hold on a minute. Yeah, I am 30. Oh, so I must be wrong. Tottle off and think, because a lot of people would feel like that, wouldn't they? Go, oh, well, they know best, because a lot of people put all the trust into a GP. And like you say, they know a lot. No, they know a little about a lot. I always get that one the wrong way around. Yeah. They know a little about a lot because that's the training. So for it to say, oh, no, you can't be, you go, okay.
Well, and also every GP is human. Yeah, and so, someone like Janine or myself, because I'm kind of approaching that age group myself, I go in and I sit there, especially with a female, and you say, I'm having these symptoms. Honestly, I feel like it could be menopause. Like, suddenly you identify with that person in front of you, rightly or wrongly, and it's a what's the morbidity, like a morbidity check. Like, oh, like, no, you can't be on this path just yet because I'm right next to you. So that could be scary as a human, response. Because that's the other thing, is that we place our general practitioners on a pedestal above us, almost an inhuman, like they know everything. And so it's, but they are human.
And there's something about being menopausal as well, isn't it? It's like you're not, I don't know what was happening at GP. She might have wanted more children or might have wanted something else. And I could have been sat there and really kind of a big mirror. So there's no judgment going on there. One thing because my reply to that was, you can go through menopause when you're 17, you can go through menopause when you're 25, you can go through menopause when you're 65, 70. And so what came to me from there was, I just really need to change my GP. So I did. Because that, to be fair, for me, that actual answer, and I do suspect, and I hear you, Katie, I suspect it came from that real heart place, like, oh my gosh, you cannot.
Yeah.
No, I really
like a fear. Yeah. But then that doesn't help you.
No.
And it's that, like, kind of, as a, like, from a therapy background, like that transference that you can't have control your interactions, but it does sometimes, if we're not checking ourselves regularly.
Yeah. And to be fair, I don't think anybody should really say too much to a menopausal woman anyway, because I think, they're in that space of like, oh no, but I also have another theory. And so as my journey kind of went on, and it was really difficult actually, because I started using acupuncture, worked really well for a while, did the herbs, really worked for a while, but obviously my symptoms were really ramping up and I was getting exhaustion, and bleeding every 2 weeks was crazy. But
especially in a new relationship.
Yeah, the acupuncture. I think he was going to send me back at one point. It's like, have you got your receipt? Have you got your receipt? How many days? Bless him, he's a legend, isn't he? Absolute legend, living legend. I'm bad enough as it is. I'm very kind of forthright and emotional at the best of times, never mind going through that kind of thing. So it was really tricky, and then I just knew, and I did what I am, that type of person like you are. I'll go and do my homework. I'll step out into the into the world and see what's out there. And I've been very lucky because I've worked in women's health for a long time. Actually, my yoga background is my specialist is with women, through for menopause, but also in birth and beyond, and in conception. And I work with a lovely lady called Uma Dinsmore Tully, who's amazing. She's really good, fantastic with all women's health. And we had a fantastic talk by a lady. We were doing a women's health training. So yoga teachers were coming to us to learn how to be a women's health yoga kind of trainer, as it were, and to hold those sacred spaces of women together. And this amazing woman came along, and I'm going to give her a massive name check, Deanne Zibrick, absolutely living legend. So you all want to write that down and put it somewhere. And she has a Facebook group, Menopause Masters. Anyway, so I met her. She did this amazing talk about how her life had been. And, and I'm not going to talk about her story because that's her story, and you will be able to find that yourself. And I'm really passionate that it comes from her heart to you. I can't speak for somebody else's words. So I ended up going to the GP, equipped myself with everything I needed, and went to the GP, and they just completely weren't having any of it at all, really weren't. And I have a theory around this, that they have vicarious trauma from 40-odd-year-old educated women just having major breakdowns sat at a desk in front of them. They are firefighting so much at the moment with everything. It's before COVID, but it must be really hard, mustn't it, to expect to know everything about everything. But they should know this is a major part of their work, and you've got to remember that it's been very easy to ignore the woman and send her away in that knowledge base, and as women, we can buy into that as well. I don't think so anymore. I think that's changing. So I was seeing GPs, and I'd get various different things, and nobody would give me a blood test, and everybody was kind of dismissing me. And anyway, at one point I just burst out crying in front of this GP, and I said, I don't know what I'm going to do. And he just looked at me, had nothing to say to me. And I went, do I get my coat then and go? And he went, yeah. And he was a lovely man. He just was like, I just do not know what to say to this woman. So and I went home, and I was, in retrospect, I don't know what I could have done, and I wasn't in a very good place. And I went home, and my husband I sat in the car, for a long time, and my husband came out, and I went, I can't do this anymore. I'm not being seen or heard, and nobody believes me, and it's just awful. And I went, will you be my advocate? This is 2020, or it was 2019, right? And check this out. This is the most amazing. I had Deanne Zibrick, I'd done a consultation. She told me exactly what I needed. People were still ignoring me. I went, but she's a menopause clinical expert in this, still ignoring me, telling me I was wrong, telling me that it wasn't allowed, telling me that they didn't give that kind of HRT out, when I knew a friend at another clinic in the same town had kind of got it. So it was all that, no. And I went home and went, will you be my advocate? I know it sounds really stupid, but I can't speak without getting really upset. And they just think I'm completely crazy, and I went in, and he was my advocate, and I got the HRT within a day or two.
Does that really have to happen?
They believe the man. Told me what? Yeah. All right then. God.
It's unfortunately we can't go back and see if it would have been different had it been a woman as your advocate.
Well, I don't know.
Do you know what I mean?
I saw enough females.
But yeah, could it have been the same? Yeah, would it have been the same?
Who knows?
It
was a male GP.
But it's kind of male GP listening to the man, and that is very frustrating.
I only went down that road because I was that desperate to get what I needed as well.
Absolutely, But that's the choice, isn't it? You're being forced into a corner of desperation because nobody is listening to you, male or female, not listening to you because you, don't fit this supposed box for menopause.
I think a lot of menopausal women are like me. as well. But
I imagine
they end up with antidepressants. They end up going out with antidepressants. That's all they were. That's all that was happening at that time. Now, I'm not saying all GPs were like there's some brilliant ones out there.
Yeah,
absolutely amazing. But
it's a minefield.
They had to send me to a specialist. To I had to wait for a year and take a place of somebody that would have really needed that. Other gynae issues. For the guy, for the consultant to go, that's an amazing combination of HRT for you. Of course we would. And I thought, wow, what a waste of money. But I'm not GP bashing because it's not about that. It's about education. And they do not know. And Deanne Dianzabrook's doing an amazing thing around that, like changing that. And even there's amazing people out there. So like people like police officers, when they've got their nylon clothes. I think there's a woman in Nottingham, a senior police officer, that changed the actual clothing for women, in the police. Because a polyester shirt, the little things like normally being top of your game and going into a meeting and forgetting what you have said, forgetting what you've said, and everybody's different. So HRT worked for me, but it doesn't necessarily mean that everybody needs that. I'd exhaust other options as well, but it also doesn't mean it should have been withheld from me either,
No,
I wasn't good on the pill. So if you're not good on the pill, the standard HRT they're going to give you isn't good for you. It's do your research as well. So Deanne Dianzabrook, if anybody's listening to this is going, God, that's me.
I've written down the name so we can post that with
we'll post that and we'll put all of her details onto our Facebook page and stuff like that as well. Once we've released this podcast out to the world. But do you know what struck me that sitting and listening to your story there, Janine, is the fact that, do you know what? Desperation.
God, yeah.
The word desperation, I can't let go of that. You shouldn't have been made to feel desperate because your journey itself and all the symptoms that you went through in your personal experience, you were already feeling that anyway. So you didn't want the added pressure on yourself. So that it's really it's sad, isn't it, that there's a lot of women that have to go through that. A lot.
Getting to a desperation point and a frustration that nobody's listening. And so in that respect, of course, every female who then gets thrust the antidepressants is going to be like, thank you, because you finally feel like you're being heard. But you're not really being listened to, or vice versa. You're not being heard, but you're just being listened to. And it's like, oh, well, these signs and symptoms fit more with depression. Well, actually,
it's entering you into that sacred pause as well. So for a lot of women, things like yoga are absolutely fantastic for this as well, but you might have to change the style of what you're doing. Or whatever it was that was keeping you tickety-boo before, or that kind of made your heart sing and brought you joy and relaxation and connection. Yeah. All of a sudden that kind of goes because you're stepping through to a portal of a next space, and it's supposed to be the way they called us the crones in times gone by, because it was when we attain the wisdom, and when you've got no kids, you're not looking after kids, and you're not taking any crap from anybody else, and you're speaking your truth. An empowered woman with means and actually no duties is a really powerful thing. You don't want people asking questions if you're in that kind of society where it's patriarchal or just a society as it is at the moment. It's like, it's fascinating. So that's another reason why it's, we only got the vote.
To push people, and to push women into the need to be advocated for, is so frustrating. We're constantly telling each other to advocate better for ourselves, and then to not be heard is such a frustrating message. From health practitioners.
I did feel like I was in Victorian England. I actually thought, and I actually said, and I remember, I actually remember the little things like I had a phone and the GP was giving me the runabout. I think we kind of got into something, when, I think he was probably fed up of people coming in telling him what they thought they had, and he's probably had so much going on, and it had to be you were 45. It's 45 for them to give you this HRT or whatever I wanted, or I had to have a blood test, and I was something like I think I was something like 8 weeks towards this blood test, to this age group, and I went, I'm 45 in that many times. How much, what's difference is this 8 weeks going to make? And he went, yes, but you still have to have it. I insist. And you know what I did? I threw a brand new iPhone at the wall.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if you could, I'm normally kind of quite grounded and centered in some ways, and I'm very emotional in others, but to do that, I was like, oh my goodness, it was like, I actually just went, okay. And then I went, bang, and threw it at the wall. And I went, oh God, it's my new phone. It's my new phone. But what I'm trying to say is it's the power and the kind of not being able to take the crap. It's like we can take the rubbish before that, but something happens with menopause. I already have truth serum. It was like truth serum with steroids. It was like
truth serum plus. Yeah. Oh my. Well, but there's something in that, like you just mentioned. We live in this world with this magical internet now, where there's so much information at our fingertips, so much correct information and so much incorrect information, and we don't know how always to navigate that. So for a GP, I can't imagine what that must be like, having patient after patient coming at you with, well, I found this and I found that. But at the end of the day, if that now has been something that's been happening for the last 20 years minimum, they need to adapt to that.
Yeah, and Diane Diane's book has gone great steps as well, because I think they only got an hour or 2 hours of training on menopause in their whole trainings. I mean, for goodness sake, it's quite shocking. So, I mean, they're great campaigners out there, and there's GPs that are campaigning for this as well. It's not about being a GP, it's about being not given the information when you're training and not knowing, because at the end of the day, that is possibly a lot of the people that will come into their office. That will be a big part of their work, and there's a big part of their work that sticking plasters going on, or people are taking antidepressants. They might not go back to their GP, And I ended up doing a bloody article into, like, I don't know, Daily Mail it ended up going into, with a few other people, like Diana got me kind of involved. And, a few people got in touch with me after that and said, this happened to me and I found myself in that position. Thank you for, speaking about that. Even though, it's like bearing you everything, isn't it? Like I'm doing it with you now, like telling you the insides of all sorts of me. But in some respects, if we could speak more about these things, it normalizes it, because actually it's really normal, and it's normal not to have any of this as well, and it's normal to because we're all different. And there's a Facebook page as well that I would recommend, and I think it's Menopause Masters. I'll find out, you can put it on there. But not only is it really deep and you hear people's stories, but it's also incredibly funny, because we have the amazing ability as women to navigate this with so many resources and so many different parts of ourselves. So it's not a weakness, it's just a big change. And a lot of the time, years ago, we would have gone through this and we would have been at this next stage of our lives. But most women are having children. So I know a lot of perimenopausal postnatal women. It must be really difficult. So you still go you're perimenopausal, but you're postnatal at the same time, hormones. And a lot of women are running amazing jobs at high level organizations, or just a house full of people and looking after so many people. So you're getting that space where you would have been before, and the cultures, it's just different. We're different. And I've actually decided, I have taken HRT, and I don't particularly like putting things in my body, but it has really helped me. And I'm not just saying that I'm not advocating anything except for individuality and doing your own thing and walking your own path, finding all stuff like that. But I'm going to save up, and I'm going to spend 6 months going off somewhere, you know, just to go through the menopause, come off the HRT and go through that passage. But it might take me about 5 or 10 years. But for the safety of all concerned, for the safety of all concerned, I might need to be somewhere a bit.
Cabin in the woods.
Yeah.
But I think you're so right, is that those lines and milestones in life have been so blurred over the past few decades, you know, is that people struggle if you fall outside of those defined lines. And so it's understanding, although wrong, that this is continuing to happen.
Yeah.
And as a person who, so if I'm right, you were saying that you noticed some of the changes starting around 37 to 39, but you didn't actually get confirmation until 40. You've got to wait till you're 45 to get the test.
Yeah, and when I did actually finally get that blood test, which the blood test is completely bollocks anyway, because it is a case of you could have loads of estrogen one day and none. You know, it's that's the whole point of menopause. It's like that. So it depends on when you have it taken. It doesn't really mean much, you know.
Yeah.
But so you've got that kind of thing going on. But by the time I had it, I was well through the other side. But you're still the symptoms are still there, you know, and they were waking me up, and it was difficult for me. You know,
in the last 12 months, I've had 2 separate blood tests because my cycle's just gone to hell in a handbasket. And like even at now, I think I'm at the 2-month mark since my last period. So like, and I know that there's a change in my body, but I'm not being heard. And it's like, go and have this blood test. Oh, everything's fine. Okay, so what's next? There's no what's next from the GP. It's all on us to fight. And like, why are we fighting for basic needs? Just to function on a daily basis.
Yeah. And herbs can be really good, Katie, you know, and you can go and see a herbalist that will help you, you know, with some of the symptoms and things like that. And I honestly rated acupuncture like
I've just been doing a bunch of research because one of my projects at school was to talk about acupuncture. So I've just done a bunch of research and a lot of recommendation for menopausal
it's good for conception, you know, normally like a combination of like, you know, acupuncture and yoga for these big female transitions can be really good. So, you know, and what you're doing is the yoga's maintaining and kind of bringing you to balance, but it's also bringing you back home to yourself so you can listen and hear and actually check in with how you actually feel. And it's exhausting being in this fast-paced world, you know, even though COVID's here, still, you know, so much information, so much stuff. And I think there's definitely a slowing down and stepping into that next portal, you know, of where you're going to be.
And then, but as you know, going through the, like, obviously practicing yoga for years, and like you say, it's great, it's balancing everything out through your body, it's teaching us to listen. And so we get to a point where we're listening really well, and then we're told we're hearing it wrong. It goes back to my whole alone kind of thing, is that it's only really us. We're all in this on my own.
Well, you know, it is about your ability to self-see and your ability, because we have everything we need within, but when you get lost and you feel like you've been whizzed around on a you know, on
a waltzer,
you can't find your center, you know. So sometimes it's good to sit with other people that have had experiences, you know, and checking into that as well. And, you know, your cycles can go off for many different reasons as well. And you know, there's so much.
Especially right now, COVID and the stress that people are going through. Yeah.
Absolutely. So, you know,
go on, Laura.
Sorry, we were talking. Katie and I were talking about this and how women don't discuss menopause pre-menopause. Do you know? So you're not aware of it. It's not a topic of conversation you speak about at school. Well, you may do these days, so I can't Like that's not a statistic or a fact or anything. I don't know, but we weren't taught the menopause at school, and it isn't something that comes up in conversation, because I think a lot of people could feel, well, I'm not at that age, because, like you say, it can start so young, and it can.
And we hide behind the euphemisms. I mean, our family, massive love, but we do have our, what do we call it? Short-term energy releasing behaviors. So when something big is happening in our family, our natural response is humor. And it's been one of those things that has just carried us through, and it's kept us all together, and it's kept us strong. So it's massively useful, but it doesn't address the actual emotion.
Yeah.
Like, and so that's where maybe we don't talk about menopause, but we all have the giggles with the euphemisms of the tropical moments, or the, the hot flashes, or whatever each auntie's calling it. And then it's like, oh, well, we'll move along. They're clearly in discomfort. Let's move past it. Let's giggle and move along.
And a lot of them might not have any symptoms. A lot might have loads, because this is the point, and I'm early in some way, but I'm not early as some people, because it can happen, but I've experienced it early. Sounds like, Katie, that you're kind of going down that road as well, and for my point, my joints were going. So my thing was to the GP was like, I can't move. I can't get out of bed in the morning. It's taking me longer to do anything. I said, I the things I do for a living, and also the things that what is the long-term health of my joints with it all? And there's been more research on HRT, and I'm not going to go down that road, because you can have a look on Diane's website and other places for all that information as well. And it really is wise and well-researched information. But yeah, going down these different pathways, and kind of, I'm having a senior moment now, forgetting what I'm talking about.
Menopause.
We're talking about menopause.
That's it. I can't even remember what my plumbing point was. And that's another thing, That's another thing.
Yeah.
Oh, don't say that, because my memory's already shocking.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that was it.
I've spent my life wandering into a room and being like, why am I here? Right.
I call it nounism. Now. I can't remember naming words for people or things. Like, you'd be like that. That thing that's white. My sister Sam on here, she'll laugh. That thing that's white, it's got kind of white, and it has this thing in the middle of it, and it'll give a bit of light off. And I always have them out. That kind of thing. It's a candle. But you can't remember that it's a candle.
The name of it. A
friend of mine just says it's because your brain's too full of amazing things that it doesn't have to remember the incidental. Your brain's so full of wisdom that you don't have to remember what this thing is called, because it's not important.
Doesn't contribute to the wisdom. Brilliant.
So, yeah.
Well, Janine, so I messaged my kind of group of yogis, because I said that we were going to be having you on to talk about it. And one of the first things that I got was, what, you can go through the menopause in your 30s? Was one of the questions. But one of my friends, she is a mental health nurse, but she's also training the grief recovery method. And so I'm actually in her grief recovery workshop at the moment. And so one of the things she was asking was, did you experience any sense of loss and grief around, like, a loss of womanhood or a loss of sanity? What were your experiences with regards to grief and loss, I suppose?
Absolutely. And it's that maiden motherhood, isn't it? It's that kind of where you're going through, we're missing those different parts. And I really loved that motherhood element of the majority of my work is being with people who've had babies and, going through that pregnancy. And I actually quite enjoyed that, stepping back from that. But it was that case of, I think I was ready actually to kind of move on in some ways, but you are not the kind of juicy kind of, like young kind of, like, you've not got that kind of, you've not got that kind of essence when you walk into the room of that kind of 20s, 30s kind. Do you see what I mean? That juice, that kind of,
that youthful
pheromones or whatever.
confidence.
Yeah, that bit on your cycle where you're feeling hot to trot and you're like, yes, it's day whatever.
Oh, because you're looking for a mate.
Yeah, you wake up one morning and you just feel like the world is a magical place and you're the most amazing, sexy, thing there, and you just have these wonderful interactions with people, because that's the point of your cycle when you're ovulating, and that's where procreation happens. It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's like, that's how we're designed. So sometimes when you've not got those moments, but then you find the other wisdom in that, and the freeingness of it as well. I absolutely love not having periods anymore. But some other people be absolutely horrified with that. It's so. I think.
Well, because we have that for so long.
Yeah.
Like, and we are creatures of habit. And so to suddenly miss this ritual every month that we experience, whatever our personal ritual is, we do lose that.
Yeah. And remember where I'm at the moment is I am, I've got loads of kids. I'm a woman that lives in the shoe, and so, well, I'm not, they've all flown the nest now, kind of thing. But if I was wanting to, again, that's another thing, isn't it, that would be coming to the table. And I want to say to people that are listening, I had menopause fairly young, and I think I need to say that. Like, I can't remember what's the average age, Laura. You did the research. I should know this, but 50, 55?
45.
It's about perimenopausal, though, isn't it? I thought it was about 50 for. I don't know. I'm not very good on figures.
Now you're asking. I released all my statistics last week.
All right. Well, refer to last week then. Everybody can refer. I'll be on the website. Have a look on there. So yeah, in answer to your question, grief and what? Yeah. You are, and it's that transitions, isn't it? Moving into that next space as well. It depends on how you are with transitions. And there was something very visceral about my experience. My life was going so fast. I wasn't ready to step into that way, and in some respects that's kind of what I've done. I put it on hold a little bit, so I make the arrangements that I can actually slow down in that respect and completely speak my mind and enjoy not enjoy the fragility, but like feeling into my body in its natural place as well, where it actually is. So, but I've got to get my head around that first, and my heart. So yeah, grief.
Yeah. And I know some of the others of things that were popping up for people were how supported did you feel? Now, obviously, from a medical perspective, not very supported at all. So you had to go and find support elsewhere. Obviously, Ewan was very supportive to the point where he came to be an advocate for you. But where did you find some of the biggest support?
I found, and Laura knows this very much. One of my biggest passions in life, and actually the work that I think is the most important, is circles of people, or circles, and especially with this kind of menstrual and kind of women's health kind of stuff, circles of women, or however you want to identify. It's coming into that space together, and I think by being able to share our experiences from a place of honesty and trust and feeling safe in that space is a beautiful thing to be able to do. But even in those circles, sometimes, not in a sacred sitting in circle, but I have been on some camps sometimes, and and I've talked about, I've taken HRT, and I remember a woman saying to me, "Oh, love, I think you should try something else." And I was thought, I've tried that. You can't speak for another woman. I would never, ever, ever, ever give judgment on the path of something like that, because we've got to walk a walk, and the walks are so different, and like so completely different for everybody, and that's cool. And we just need to listen with a heart and an ear, I think.
And that's one of the things that I think I posted about that yesterday or last night, is that, like, my friend Suzanne, one of the things that she's always saying in the grief group is that, do you feel like your heart is being heard? And it's something I'd never really thought about before, because I don't often let my heart speak. I think I often speak with my brain. More intellectual over emotional. And so that's really interesting, because even though you're surrounding yourself with women who potentially in a similar position. Yeah, need to put my teeth in. There can still be an awful lot of judgment, and it is back to that we are on this path alone. Support is often needed. Support is always welcome for many, but ultimately we kind of are alone. We've got to figure these things out, what works for us personally, and advice is sometimes useful and often not wanted.
I think we're trying to come into connection with ourselves, aren't we? And ultimately, when we connect into ourselves, we realise that all is connected. So, in some respects, I hear you. In other respects, like we're connected to everything, aren't we? So we are alone when we don't feel seen and heard. So I really hear you on that, Katie. And it is a case of choosing the people at different stages of your life. People come into your life, and being with those people in your life that really see and hear you is very important. And I don't know, sometimes it happens when you have children, you move away from people slightly, but it doesn't mean that you don't love them any less. It just means at that point your resonance, you're not kind of connecting in that way. And then what kind of happens is sometimes you reconnect at a different point. Have you ever had that where you've been really close with somebody, and then all of a sudden friendship's kind of fallen away, but not like fallen away, and then you meet them again later down the road, and it's like, oh my God, we were so connected. How did that connection go? Because at that point you're not what each other needs for your journey. You're not what each other needs at that point. And I think surrounding yourself with people that add, because actually you have got like a bullshit rater as well, so you can't be around people that kind of you want to speak your truth with, and it's not very nice or kind, and because you go away with guilt and shame. So surround yourself with people that add to your life is the most important thing, really.
Yes. I love that. I did get a few questions actually about water retention. And if that's something you
looking a bit rounder.
No, I was just going to ask, because I know that we are very blessed in our family for water retention. And especially through those childbearing years, the Murphy Cankles. And so some of my friends were like, what about water retention? Did she find anything useful? So I was like, oh, well, I'll ask.
Well, that's not my path really on that one, because I'm the one that escaped them, and I sit in a plane with my mum and other people and see the gang. But it's not something that really affects me. But the only thing with water retention is you drink more water. I know this from pregnancy, just keep rehydrating, keep drinking. In so many ways, it sounds like you're not really retaining, you're just needing more. So I don't know. That's that. I don't know about that, but I bet somebody does, and I bet somebody's got a fantastic hack for that.
I imagine so. And then I did have several people say, "Did it affect your sex drive?" And I was like, "You do know I'm speaking to my cousin."
Yeah, no, it doesn't affect in that way at all. I think at that point in life, it can rev it up a little bit. So you can, for women, that tends to what can kind of happen or not, because again, we're all really, really different. And it's just working that out. You might not feel as juicy, but it doesn't mean you don't feel as as sexy, and you want to
you drive.
And I think it's that procreation thing. I think that's a primal thing as well in some respect. And it's
I was going to say,
enjoy it, because you're not going to get it traditionally having
there's a freedom in it.
So you can actually enjoy it for what it is as well. I know we do now in society now. We've been we've kind of stepped out, and we have contraception and things like that. But traditionally that would have been the time where you could actually go, actually I can really enjoy this now, and who knows, in primal times we might have taken on lots of younger
lovers, the cougars.
I'm not doing you, and you're all right. I'm happy with what I've got. Very happy.
Just off down to Yates's. Find myself a nice hot young 25-year-old.
I couldn't think of anything worse. Although a lot of people couldn't think of anything better as well. So you do see that in ways, and
absolutely.
We're all so different.
Yeah, and hearing different stories and different angles, is great, because you might hear a little bit of yourself in there, but it also might trigger you to think, well, that's not my experience, so you get to explore a different avenue. And I think it's all very helpful listening to everyone's experiences, because that's the only way we get to figure our own path out.
Yeah, and the more knowledge that we can get from talking to different people, and finding out, other women's symptoms and experiences, and it's just more knowledge for us who are approaching that time in their lives as well, to go, right, okay, so there's all these different, because we can read, and as we've mentioned, the internet can bombard us, and you can just get stuck down rabbit holes looking at information about menopause, and you're like, oh, but that says that, and then that contradicts what that says, and you can get yourself completely tied up in knots. But listening, I think, as well, having these circles of support with other women who are going through those experiences, or approaching those experiences, or just to sit and chat about it. I think that is needed before they're just about to enter this stage. And they can be wrapped up in kids at that stage. I mean, I've got a 7-year-old, so you can be wrapped up in kids just right now. But, I know it's approaching for me. I know it's going to come. So I want to make sure I'm grounded and I'm open, and I'm ready for these things to come at me, but through listening and having that bit of knowledge there. So that's, and again,
for us, in many ways, whilst women have tended to have the rough end of the stick throughout life, one of the things that we are fortunate is that we do end up being more encouraged to sit in circles and to discuss openly and honestly. We're actively encouraged to build each other up in that way, because it's so valuable. And yet men don't always get that option. And so, we don't always hear the men's side of menopause, because they have to go through it as well. From an external perspective, like, gosh, imagine how we did say we should get Ewan on to talk about his perspective, of kind of watching you spiral out of control, and not know what to do to help you.
Yeah, I think it is so difficult to them. I can imagine that's probably why they like to go to the pub, so nobody has to talk about how they feel or feelings.
Yeah, we'll just drink them down. Yeah.
Just people go, can you just talk to me? I'm not really, let me discuss this, because that's how women process a lot of the time. We discuss stuff, whereas men are like, well, not, I mean, oh gosh, stereotyping to high heaven, but quite a lot of men just like, it's a problem, it needs fixing, and then we move on, and I speak to a lot of men as a therapist as well, so that we joke about that, and they only read instructions when they can't do it, when it's broken and it means failure, so they don't tend to read around stuff as well. But when I first met you, this is divulging all sorts, aren't I? So I've always had a problem with my cycle. I always had a couple of days where I just kind of fell, I couldn't, I was so emotional. I was so, I was in a dark place. It'd be every month, and it was day 4 and day 4 of my period when I'd feel like this. So not everybody's really different. It's not like, all this stuff. And I remember one of the first things I said to him, I don't even know why he still went out with me and married me. One of the things I said to him was like, day 4, love, day 4. I said, I want you to rescue me. You can't. And do not enter into any engagement or try. And it's not personal. You need to know this. It's not personal. Just throw doobies at me. Let me kind of like bring me chocolate, or just let me be. And I might say things to you that will, be quite confrontational, but it just let it pass. It's really nothing to do about me and that space. I think I said that to him probably on our first proper date, but it was so important, because I think
that's why you're still together.
Yeah,
because of your
brutal honesty.
Yeah, but menopause was like day 4 every day for a while.
Yeah.
Oh, Ewan.
Let's give him a brownie.
Cuddle for Ewan.
Yeah.
you know, but he does talk. He embraces that feminine. You know, he is kind of, you know, he's got girls, you know, as well. So he's kind of, you know, quite good like that. So, but yeah, completely. I think they need a support group. In some ways, it's frightening and confusing. And a lot of the time, you've got teenage kids when you're going through the menopause. And I remember going, you know, hopefully I've been a really nice, lovely mum. You know, we've had loads of adventures. I remember I put some tea down once, and they went, I don't want that. And I got hold of it, went to the sink and chucked it in the sink, and then everybody sat there like that because it was so different to what our life was like. And then I had to come back in again and say, you know, this is menopause, kids. You know, I watch for you when you're looking quite activated through your teenage hormones. You're going to have to start to read the signals, because you're going to go and work in an office with somebody as well that might be like this, and interactions. You know, you can't wind somebody up when they're already in that place. Well, you can, but that's what happens. And nobody ever moaned about the tea for quite some time later after that.
Eating a Jacob's cracker dry. This is delicious.
But, you know, it was one of those moments where, you know, and as a mum, I kind of heaped a bit of guilt and shame on myself, because that's what we do, don't we? We kind of beat ourselves up afterwards. But then I sat down and thought about it a bit later and thought, well, that opened up that discussion, you know, for conversation. Kids probably need lots of therapy afterwards, who knows? But I think they know they're loved. I think they know they're loved, you know?
Yeah.
But
I think I remember you opening up and saying that, Janine, at one point, saying that, you know, I'm angry and I'm shouty. I'm really shouty, and that's not me. And I'm shouty. And I think that was, obviously, it was one of the earlier symptoms, because you were just, it was the whole process, isn't it?
Yeah, you're right. And that was something, it was like I had, you know, I was just really kind of, you know, it just didn't recognize myself, you know, and it's and there's just something that just needs to kind of, it's power in some ways. It's for me, it was a transformation of fire. It's kind of burning off all the old so you can step into the new, you know. It was, and it really did, you know, it took away our physical practice. When I really got quite bad arthritis at one point, you know, it runs in our family, doesn't it, you know? And I said to the doctor, I said, you know, my arthritis, I'm going to get to the point where I can't do the things that keep me really healthy and happy, you know. It's that I have to make an executive decision in that respect, and understanding. And we get a lot of fear and guilt. It's fear as well, isn't it? You know, it's like, I haven't got control of it. And it reminded me very much of myself when I was a teenager, actually, when I was starting to go through hormones. I was like that as well, you know. It's an energy, isn't it? And it's only when we're trying to block down that energy that it kind of has to come out in some way. But it was really, and, you know, it was a really kind of fiery kind of thing. And I, you know, and I respect it. I respect it now. And like, wow, that was definitely that. I wasn't expecting.
Now you've made sense of it.
Yeah, I respect it, but I wasn't expecting it. So it was that kind of, I was disorientated by it. And I think that's where the fear comes from. You know,
and you can understand why, like, one of the big statistics is a lot of women actually think they're going mad.
Oh, yeah.
So they're just going to take the antidepressants.
Yeah. And when I came out from that GP and actually broke down, like everything in there, like, you know, really, and I said, I don't know what I'm going to do, and then, you know, and I didn't, you know, it's like, but at that moment, you know, and I think that's when Ewan got involved, because from his job, he was like, what, they let you go saying something like that, and it wasn't even flagged up, you know. And I met somebody else who told me something, and I won't go into any details at all, but they said that they were at that point, you know, and it was something else that saved them. It was like something really, you know, it was, you know, an animal that kind of made them think, well, what would happen if I did this? Where would how would they get home? You know, like, it's like, it's everywhere. It's happening everywhere. So I think we just have to be really amazing with our fellow women, you know, and you might be in
talk
an
about
office,
it.
Yeah, talk about it. And it's nothing's ever personal. It's all behaviour is communication, isn't it? And it's
not new.
No.
It's not new. It's not new information. Like, women haven't just suddenly started to bleed from the vagina. Like, it's not new. And menopause isn't new. It's just another stage in life. And why people have to feel that they are going through this on their own, like they're the first explorer into this foreign territory, is beyond me.
Great, isn't it?
Yeah.
And also in some respects, what is new is that we, I mean, we've only, how long have we had the vote in the way of our kind of our complete history of being women, from, you know, from round caves and things, and only now we had a voice not so long ago. You know, if you look at it at the timeline, it's like, oh my God, we've got a voice here.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
we are
in terms of evolution. In that sense, it's like even with really the working class and the poor, you know, only really having a say in a similar time frame, you know, actually speaking up for ourselves is still relatively new.
So it must feel just overwhelming at the moment for any kind of professional and things, because actually the structures aren't in place, and it needs a big catching up to speed, you know. And a lot of the research around HRT, it wasn't done in a particular, there was, you know, the studies weren't particularly relevant there, you know, and not everybody can have HRT, but it's also worth a good consultation, because sometimes it's thought that people can't when they can, but sometimes people can't, and then that needs a lot of extra care and a lot of extra understanding and a lot of extra, you know, around that. Yeah, it's
almost like it needs to be its own branch of therapy, really. It's like a mixture between that physical and mental health.
Yeah, I work a lot with menopause as well on the mat, and do a lot of other therapies around that, because people are coming to a point as well, and they're making sense of their lives. You know, it's that place of wisdom. So sometimes things aren't that they've put up with and coped with for long periods of time. Sometimes it is the time where it's all kind of coming out. So I do a lot of therapy around that, connecting the mind and the body. And
how many people will have, like, relationships have broken down through this, and unnecessary like carnage from I'm having a really good language in day today.
Yeah, and people leave jobs as well, so it's actually people leave jobs as well and careers that they look, because all of a sudden they just can't be arsed. They don't want to do it anymore. Life has changed, and it's like, actually, in my kind of those days before I hit menopause, before I hit growing, it was really important to me that I had this and this and this, and actually I'm in a different place now, and that feels like bullshit to me now, whereas it didn't then. It was really important. It was like what gave me purpose, and now I don't feel that it validates me anymore. So people are actually going through massive life changes, so I help people navigate that, and it's a really good space to be in, actually, where people can navigate that space, because often they want to, like, do something completely different, like completely different. So it's beautiful as well. We talk about it in such negative respect.
Embrace it.
Perhaps because I'm out and out, little, you know, but there's also a lot of beauty in it. But sometimes you can't see it because you're in the middle of the fire, or your life has just kind of changed so fundamentally that you can't recognise your arse from your elbow. You know, it's like, Mum, what? I've sworn a couple of times, haven't I? You know, sorry, Mum.
But you're not wrong, and it's and that's, I think that's one of the problems, is that it feels so isolating, and really it shouldn't be, and
isolating and negative, you know, and like you say, not very well supported. So I think the key really is to prop each other up, talk, and be there. Isn't it, really? And get that sort of grounding in place before you have to start going through the menopause, and you're not then at this, you know, if you're going through some symptoms where you do think you're going mad, is that the right time then to go, right, who else is going through the menopause? I need somebody. I don't know what's going, you know, are you in? So I think really to get a good solid group going who was willing to be in that support.
Maybe we need some menopause doulas.
Yeah, what you would do there, Laura, you set up a group about a women's group, just a women's group in general, and that's where it'll all come out. So it doesn't have to always be about menstruation or menopause, or you know, all the. It can just be a circle of different ages, and that's what's kept me completely sane. I sit in an amazing circle of women, and we're all different ages. and we've all had different experiences of the menopause as well, you know. And I think it's important that we don't just stay in our own circles of people, in our echo chambers of our own ages. It's about being we've lost that connection with our elders, and we've lost that connection, you know, in other ways. And so you can see it in one way rather than just staying in clusters, because what happens is when you start not to feel resonance with that sense that, you know, it's a big leap to go somewhere else. But if you surround yourself with people from all different parts of life, then God, your life is so nourished, and there's so much wisdom in all of that as well, isn't there? You know.
Oh my, yeah.
And it is amazing. And back to the Facebook group, because Facebook can be quite good for stuff like that. One of the things that got through me was that Facebook group, because sometimes I just howl laughing at some of the funny stories that people would tell about their despair. Because I love humour. It is relevant. It's important to get us through the dark to the light. Yeah. And then in the next word, I'd be crying because I could really resonate about somebody else, you know. So that connection, it was like, gosh, you know, and that's what life is like. We can be here and there. And I feel that the menopause just kind of went boom and like just dropped me into this kind of, oh my gosh, where am I? You know, and it was that being able to come and sit in a more centered place. I did a lot of yoga nidra, a lot of relaxation. I couldn't move so much. I was knackered, you know. So my practice changed an awful lot at that point. My body changed an awful lot about that point, you know. So yeah, you do what's right for you. But then I know other people that kind of, when they hit menopause, they fought fire with fire, and they did a lot of hot yoga and a lot of really physical stuff, because that's what worked for them.
Right.
Yeah. Somebody said to me, I did it for a year and I'd never want to do it ever again. But that year was like really important. You know, it was like she just needed to go through that, and it got her through. Yeah.
Oh, I really hope that I'm the yoga nidra relaxation.
Yeah. And Laura, it might be 20 years' time, you know. It's like,
well, that's it. You just don't know, do you? But I'd rather fill myself with information so that, you know, it's like a preparation. It's not just going to come and wallop me in the face. And like you say, you know, you've already got all these emotions and symptoms and everything else that's going round that, you know, if you've got that info, then it kind of like might make things a little bit clearer, or at least you know a little bit anyway. Do you know?
I think it's important for the people around you, isn't it, to know?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, to kind of be prepared that things will change, and it might not be pretty.
But it'll be glorious.
All right. But it'll be glorious on the other side.
Oh, well, that's been absolutely great. Thank you for your like fountain of knowledge here, Janine, and also sharing, because, you know, a lot of people, it's a personal experience, and just, you know, big love for coming on to our podcast and sharing that. We really, really do love you, and we do love you. Obviously, we have to, because you're family as well.
Yeah, and
we have to love you.
And I'm older in the pecking order.
Yeah. Supervision over.
And thanks for having us as well, you know. And there's always that, if we just tell our truths and our stories, you know, and it's that, and everybody's story is completely different, but if we can be more honest, and life, in Instagram life, we can have Instagram lives at one point, and we can have very different lives another day as well, can't we? And that's really important, and to honour all parts of your life. So so now you know the insides and outsides of me, but hopefully some of it might resonate with somebody. And you know, we're all different. We shouldn't be fitting in boxes. We don't fit in boxes. We're human beings, and we will be different, you know.
Oh, well, thanks.
Thank you.
Well, that's a wrap. I think we'll just leaves us to say, see you, love you, bye.
Yeah, see you, love you, bye.